A very warm welcome and thank you for joining me. The video is longer than I anticipated, but you'll be richly rewarded with amazing insights in astrology and Egyptian, Greek, and Roman mythologies. Greek philosopher Socrates, circa 400 BC, threw in the towel alleging that he knew nothing. But then again, he thought observing objects with his eyes and other senses may blind his soul. Mathematician Descartes, circa 1600 AD, doubted everything, yet confusingly purported in Latin cogito ergo sum, meaning I think, therefore I am. Mystifyingly, this concept sprang out of his doubtful ideologies. So is he really am when he's thinking dubiously in the present? Or is he inferring to the meaning of to be, as in the future sense, for that which will come to be? Humans' ever-present fascination to shape our future through connections with the sky gave birth to astrology and the horoscopic chart that in a funny way allowed us to become. In essence, we're given a second birth for spiritual visions. However, can we see our future in the dark? When light is blocked by the gnomon rod of a sundial, light is scattered into chaos, and the resulting shadow tells the time with something that was always there, absolute darkness. To be is not only being, but is an indication of an awareness of time. At the time of your birth, the zodiac wheel of the planets and stars are set into motion. Technically, to be covers the gamut of your identity to the state of your existence, with conditions that one state of existence is dependent on another. For example, the sundial gnomon is dependent on scattering and reflecting rays of light to cast a shadow to tell the time. In ancient Greek, gnomon means to discern or interpret, or fit to judge, and also refers to the carpenter square that constructs the sundial. The similar word gnomai means to come into being, be born. Therefore, the darkness of the sundial shadow is coming into being, or is it coming into awareness of our mortal world? The ancient Greek word horoscope comes from horao, which is commonly believed to mean hour watcher. In reality, horao means to physically look with your eyes at something, to be able to see, perceive, observe, or understand with the mind. As we will find out, astrology is the study of the stars that is based on eyesight, rays of light, angles of incidental light, and time and season indicators. What is presented today is a very small edge of an iceberg that explains astrology. What does the word astrology mean? In Latin, astro means star, which derived from the ancient Greek words astron or aster, meaning star or the flower. Astro refers to the sun, stars, constellations, planets, celestial bodies, fate or omens, while the ology suffix is from logos, meaning the philosophy of rational reason. One ray of light from a star without an object for it to strike will travel in an infinite straight line trajectory without ever being seen by the eye. This photograph is the most eye-catching example of the phenomena that demonstrates that light only shines when it strikes an object or a planet. In reality, light is chaos, and the calmness of absolute darkness is hosting the light. Darkness levies rent due for the space that light takes up, making darkness light's landlord to grapes and crops. The general words for light in ancient Greek is lukos, for white, light, bright, or the word luk, which refers to the morning twilight. Circa 150 BC, the Greek astronomer Hipparchus invented a scale to describe the brightness of visible distant lights. To the ancient Greeks, the stars and light in our night and day sky were ranked by brightness. The Hellenistic period began after the death of Macedonian king Alexander the Great in 323 BC and extended to the rise of Augustus in Rome 31 BC. Hellenistic Greek astrologers tinkered with an already existing framework of astrology built by defeated empires such as the Sumerians, Akkadians, Hittites, Persian Babylonians, Chaldeans of Babylon, Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans. Words translated from their languages will add to our understanding of astrology. Throughout time, kings and nobles sought astrological counsel to earthly mundane questions seeking omens and auspicious times to act. By ancient Greek times, the thinkers were not only philosophers but poets, oft using veiled language and the art of weaving hidden meanings into their mythologies. Many mythological secrets hide behind the meaning of words. Light in many cultures was sacred, magical, baffling, and extremely useful, and thus evolved the emission theory. A long line of philosophers and mathematicians contended vision resulted from light rays being emitted from a person's eyes, thus allowed one to see whatever it touched. Even though the philosophers were mistaken about the mechanics of the human eyes, for our eyes do not light our paths, certain creatures have a mirror-like membrane in the back of their eyes called a tapetum lucidum that actually assists in lighting their path. That is, if any light exists at all. This reflective membrane causes eye shine in life forms such as dogs, cats, deer, butterfly, fish, and snake. In Latin, tapetum lucidum eloquently translates into tapestry of light or shining tapestry. It appears that most, if not all, chthonic underworld gods and goddesses are accompanied by sacred protective animals that have tapetum lucidums, such as Aries the ram, Taurus the bull, Cancer the crab or crustaceans, Leo the lion, Scorpio the scorpion, Ophiuchus the serpent, Sagittarius the centaur, Capricorn the sea goat, and Pisces the two fish. Zodiac signs represented by humans all have eye contacts. The Gemini twins Castor and Pollux bright stars are believed to represent one eye each, one immortal and one mortal. In the Virgo constellation, two galaxies, NGC 4435 and 4438, stand out that are nicknamed the Eyes. Aquarius is associated to Ganymedes, a beautiful Trojan youth who is described as literally catching Zeus's eye, who then became the zodiac bearer of Aquarius. The word Ganymedes breaks up into three parts. It's in Arabic. Gan is Gani, meaning rich or wealthy, or perhaps Medes is Arabic, or Madad is Arabic also for something like helper, assistant, or Media for cunning counsel, thus for a translation of a wealthy, cunning assistant. The NAGC 7293 Helix Nebula in Aquarius looks strikingly like an eye, and today it's called the Eye of God. The above 12 zodiac signs are visible star constellations that follow the same immortal apparent path as our sun. The ecliptic is an 8 to 9 degree wide band that is located in the sky aligned with the equator of the Earth. The ecliptic is the S-shaped line on this constellation map. However, there is a second set of hidden constellations that represents the celestial equator, and is the reason the Ophiuchus constellation exists. The seasons are caused by the Earth as it tilts back and forth 23.44 degrees from the Tropic of Cancer to the Tropic of Capricorn. As it does this, the ecliptic sweeps through different constellations as it tilts. This moving celestial equator currently passes through from left to right, and please forgive me if I mispronounce these: Cetus, Eridanus, Orion's Belt, Hydra, Canis Minor, Leo, Virgo, Serpents, Capote, and Cauda, Ophiuchus, Aguila, Aquarius, and Pisces. If you ignore the repeated celestial constellations Leo, Virgo, Aquarius, and Pisces with the zodiacs, and consider Serpent's head and tail as one, there are 8 constellations involved. As found previously in my last videos, the 8-sector celestial equator hidden signs represents randomness of fortune and is superimposed over the 12-sector elliptical zodiac sign chart. The elliptic path of our sun is immortal, represented by either the sun god Helios or the god of light Apollo, and the path of the celestial equator is mortal, represented, as we will find out, by the god of wine and partying Dionysus of darkness. Physically, our sun and moon are luminaries, natural light-giving bodies, and the visible wandering planets Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn move along the ecliptic too. However, tropical Hellenistic astrology permanently anchored the equinoxes and solstices onto the horoscopic chart. Therefore, zodiacal constellations are mere physical markers that have slowly meandered counterclockwise, but the seasonal times on the chart remains the same. Astrological aspects, the location of planets relative to each other, are one of the most prominent features on the horoscopic natal chart, drawn from the time our sun peeps over the horizon at the time of a person's birth. This is where special influxes of light from the wandering luminaries connect with the fixed star constellations. In the earthly realm, five main aspects have been appointed angles of light rays that influence interactions between celestial bodies. Today, astrologers colloquially say the planets are sending beams of light to each other. In Latin, aspectus describes the act of seeing, looking, or as something that appears from a certain direction or perspective. Light rays of astrological aspects are depicted as lines crisscrossing the horoscopic chart at certain mutual angles. Newcomers and students of astrology have that definitive moment when learning astrological aspects that requires them to make leaps of faith and assumptions. Sadly, ancient scribes gave meaning to the planets and mutual angles, but never gave an underlying explanation why certain angles meant certain things. The five major aspect angles beaming light rays between celestial objects on the horoscopic chart are conjunction at 0 degrees, sextile at 60 degrees, square at 90 degrees, trine at 120 degrees, and opposition at 180 degrees. In essence, it was believed the luminaries, planets, and stars communicated using light in influential ways. From our perspective, a conjunction at 0 degrees describes when two planets appear to meet in the sky, mutually intensifying the influences of both their lights for the good or the bad. In the perfect world, light is synergistic. Two lights shining together equal over and above the sum of their individual energy. In the real world, light acts like a wave, and if two light waves are in phase, constructive interference can create mutual harmony. And if out of phase, light is refracted, reflected, scattered, and absorbed, causing opposition, challenges, and difficulties for the ray of light to flow. Keep in mind the wavelength of an incidental light wave can change after scattering, but it cannot change after reflection. Opposition of 180 degrees is a hard aspect because the energy of the light is at odds and out of phase. The ancient Greek word axis is axon, which means to spin on an axle, and in other contexts it means the earth as it spins on its axis, or the axis of a crystal. Over 40 years ago, I played with German-made precision-cut wooden blocks to learn the rotational symmetry related to crystal axes. Overall, axis describes things that are arranged in a straight line, describing polarized light that flows in only one direction. Astrology is based on the difficulty light rays have traveling through translucent crystals that refract, reflect, scatter, and absorb light in its path. In this discussion, axis will apply to the flow of light through a crystal or transparent amorphous glass and includes planets that share light. The sextile of 60 degrees and trine of 120 degrees are said to offer ease, harmony, and opportunity that only the uninhibited flow of light can bring. In the case of the sextile, this prismatic crystal has 6 parallel faces respectively along one main axis running lengthwise down the crystal. To confirm the rotational symmetry for a sextile, hold the crystal by the top and bottom of the long axis and rotate the crystal 60 degrees 6 times, and the same 6 faces will appear. Do the same with the trine, but rotate the crystal 120 degrees 3 times, and the same 3 faces will appear. The sextile and trine have what they call 6 and 3-fold symmetry, with all the light cooperating along a communal main axis. The flow of a light ray in a trine has less stops, more light energy to offer than the sextile, but both are mainly harmonious and pleasant within context of your life, in combination with the planetary influences and the house distinctions. The square aspect of 90 degrees is much more troublesome, incongruent. A square is a square, right? However, one quickly discovers there is a square within a square. How can this be? It turns out that a cube has 2 main axes. One main axis is when the crystal is held at the center of the top and bottom of 2 opposing faces, and rotate the cube 90 degrees 4 times, and the same 4 faces appear. If the cube is held at two sharp opposing corners and rotated 120 degrees 3 times, the same three faces appear. Therefore, the light can travel in two separate paths, and the light from the two axes can actually cancel each other out completely. Astrologically, a square indicates adjustments have to be made to accommodate for the randomness of the light paths by the two individual axes. If light enters a medium from another substance at 90-degree angle, it does not refract and it passes right through. In ancient Greek, orthos means it involves a right angle, or dawn, the time around sunrise. If a trine of 120 degrees has a sextile sibling of 60 degrees, why does a square of 90 degrees appear not to have a sibling of 45 degrees? But it does, and it's called the Thema Mundi, the birth chart of our world. The Thema Mundi is shifted by 15 degrees from the traditional horoscopic chart and is based on 45-degree angles. This is an interesting twist in events. In the beginning, the primordial god of darkness, Erebos, enveloped our world in a dark mist, causing a primordial state of disorder. The compound name Erebos in Persian means before the time of wine, for the suffix eta in Persian means before the time of, and bos means wine. Nyx, his consort, was a child of chaos, meaning infinite darkness, abyss, void, or chasm. Nyx escorted Erebus through the dark of night by chariot until their daughter Hemera allowed light for the day at dawn. In ancient Greek, Hemera actually means day. The H in the name Hemera could mean the Phoenician letter H for window, and Latin meris meaning pure in the sense of glittering or gleaming for the translation of glittering window. Hemera's glittering window of heavenly light called Ather signifies day, and the dark mist of Erebos is believed to be the source of day and light rather than the sun. Greek Titan goddess Theia is the goddess of light, sight, and vision, and by extension she was described as being endowed with brilliant gold, silver, and reflective crystals of immense value. Theia is called Basilius in ancient Greek, meaning king in the feminine form, indicating a queen or a woman of notability. She embodied eyesight, prophecy, and all things that shimmer in glory, especially crystals and shiny metals. Theia is the goddess of many names, which may be the reason that goddess Theia is little known in the mythology world. In ancient Greek, Theia actually means sight or view. However, through time, mythology simplified it to just mean goddess or divine. Theia's lover was Hyperion. In ancient Greek, Hubert describes above and beyond, and the suffix eon gives it the distinction of being son of above and beyond. Hyperion only appears to mate with Theia in mythology, allowing Theia to give birth to all the luminaries, the sun god Helios, moon goddess Selene, and dawn goddess Eos. Traditionally, Theia is considered the shining ether of the blue sky, but a new translation reveals a different message. Ethos in ancient Greek means to ignite, kindle, or light. Rather than being of the blue sky, it could indicate that she's igniting or has ignited her luminary children for them to burn and blaze bright. The cunning magic of bending light was given to the magician of the major arcana tarot cards. Critics say tarot cards should be relegated back to parlor games and have no meaning with mystical evil that lurks in every corner of their supposed occult symbolism. Nevertheless, allow me to introduce the wing-footed messenger who oversees the ray of light that travels through different materials, creating facets, one face of a crystal that has many faces, as seen in a cut diamond. The magician is traditionally the messenger god Hermes of missions, diplomacy, roads, boundaries, trade, herds, mischief, travelers, thieves, communication, astronomy, and astrology, and as well as psychopomp, who is able to traverse all realms, heaven, earth, and the underworld. Moreover, in this instant, the magician is the master interpreter and the manipulator of light flowing through crystals, and is the messenger who travels at the speed of light, however fast that was to the Greeks and Romans. According to the Orphic mystery cult in Greek mythology, the king of the sky, lightning, and the gods, Zeus, mated with the goddess of agriculture, Demeter, both in snake form, and then later Zeus mated with their daughter goddess of spring, Persephone, in snake form. Their child Zagreus was to inherit Zeus's throne of heaven, thus angering Zeus's Titan wife Hera to conspire to kill the child. Many stories abound through the ages of Zagreus's birth and demise, but the main lore is that he put down his thunderbolts while distracted by the reflection in a mirror. Preoccupied, the Titans viciously attacked and ripped the firstborn Dionysus, Zagreus, apart and supposedly ate him. Athena managed to save his beating heart, the soul of his being, and delivered it to Zeus, who sewed the heart into his thigh, gestating the baby. Zeus passed Zagreus' heart to his mortal lover Semele, daughter of Cadmus, king of Thebes. The word Thebes translates into Theo for God, and Bes or Bis meaning twice, two times, or in two ways, for the message of twice God. The baby was reborn as Greek Dionysus, known to the Romans as Bacchus, and later the assimilated Greco-Roman Liber Pater. All were itinerant travelers of grape harvest, winemaking, orchards, fertility, festivities, insanity, ritual madness, religious ecstasy, and let's not forget the theater. The twice-born Zagreus Dionysus merged as a powerful chthonic god to represent rebirth and resurrection after mortal death. Before Persephone became queen of Hades, her previous name was Kor, which means pupil of the eye, aside from the meanings of maiden or bride. The pupil is the black hole in the middle of the eye that is dilated to regulate the amount of light coming into the eye. It was not Hades who causes such darkness, but his wife who casts the darkness. Her underworld darkness reaches into the thalamus, the inner chamber of the brain where consciousness lies. Greek gods appeared in anthropomorphic form, human form, but all the gods were supposedly light energy, and in this case, light that flows through crystals. Baby Zagreus appeared as dazzling crystal light to the Titans. Torn to pieces in mythology means Zagreus's light had been scattered. They say Zeus's head was cleaved to release Athena after he swallowed her mother Metis. So if Zeus is a crystal, then his daughter Athena is to knock off the old block. The Orion constellation is the main actor in the Northern Hemisphere sky drama, and is famous for an awe-inspiring star depiction of a warrior holding a shield and weapon upright. This eye-catching constellation is visible only at various times of the year in the night sky. The modern interpretation of Orion's activity is that he's chasing the Pleiades sisters with lewd intentions. Nevertheless, the reverence given to Orion for what he seizes and captures is something far past your imagination. In Homer's Iliad, Achilles' shield was adorned with an image of the Orion constellation. Orion's name goes back to the first civilization of the Fertile Crescent circa 8000 BC. Orion's Egyptian and Persian name is Sa, which means king as well as to seize and capture. For this reason, Orion is known as the hunter. Sa'd in Arabic also means he hunted, captured, and trapped or chased. The prefix Ori in Hebrew is for my light and traces back to the Hittites, circa 1600 to 1180 BC, where it literally translates into to consult an oracle in the sense of worship and reverence. The Latin prefix Ori means to rise or appear. Orion is one of the oldest demigods who turned immortal god. Oral tradition of Orion indelibly appears in Greek literature around 800 BC. Due to this fact, many layered stories and modified versions of Orion's exploits have appeared through time. Evidently, Orion inherited walking on waves from his father Poseidon, and mythology tells of Orion walking on waves from his Greek home of Thebes to the island of Chios, where Dionysus' son King Enopion had brought winemaking to the island. Oinops was Homer's epithet for sea and cattle, and the name itself is rendered as dark wine or the deep reds of sunset. In reality, Ionos actually means wine and also means eyes or face for the literal translation of wine eyes. The story goes while drunk on wine, Orion supposedly assaulted Merope, the daughter of King Enopion and granddaughter of Dionysus. She is the dimmest of the Pleiades sisters and known as a consort to Hermes. In anger, Orion was blinded, putting him into darkness, and later the gift of Apollo's rising sun restored Orion's eyesight. Merope is a compound ancient Greek word. The prefix mir in this case originates from meros, meaning destiny or being part of something, and ope means sight, opening, hollow, or an opening of a body cavity such as an eye. Therefore, Merope translates into destiny's sight or destiny's eye. In the end, Zeus's wife supposedly sent a huge scorpion to kill Zeus's illegitimate child Orion. Another myth regarding Orion's death states goddess of the hunt and moon, Artemis, accidentally shot him with an arrow, and others say he was shot on purpose. Bereft, she honored him in the sky as the Orion constellation. As was explained in my last video, the Thema Mundi is the birth chart of our world, which appears to depict the alignment of our sun and star Sirius near the summer solstice to form a two-star new moon solar eclipse. Strikingly, Orion takes his yearly journey along with Sirius and disappears around the time of the summer solstice into the daytime glare of our sun, not to be seen at night, and then near the time of the heliacal rising of Sirius, around the cusp of Cancer Leo, Orion reappears. Therefore, Orion is Sirius's vanguard, attendant while in this underworld, which prompts the question, is the underworld actually located in the obscure glare of our sun? The moon and Sirius lead this drama. The moon is in Orion's catcher's mitt, a triangle-shaped weapon raised in Orion's right hand. The blue dots outline his mirror-like shield, and the red lines display reflected light exchange between Sirius and the moon. The center of Orion's shield directly reflects incidental light to and from Sirius and the moon, while Orion is protecting the mutual light exchange by scattering rays from our sun. Thus Orion was blinded while shielding the moon and Sirius from our sun. Perseus used the shield to view the sleeping Medusa, which is now a great segue into another cool action event in the sky. Star Wars Move Over. Another combination of stars, eyes, and light plays out in the story of Perseus, capturing Medusa's petrifying head, and while saving his wife to be Andromeda from the sea monster Cetus. Andromeda was the daughter of King Cephas of Ethiopia. Actually, it's Ethiopia in English. Ethiopia is a compound word for atho, meaning igniting or burning, and ops, meaning eyes, for burning eyes. Ethiopia was the source of many precious metals and resources for ancient Egypt. The name Cephas in ancient Greek comes from kephale, relating to the brain, head, or the topmost part of something. Cephas's dilemma originated from his vain wife Cassiopeia, boasting that she and her daughter were more beautiful than Poseidon's Nereids, 50 nymphs who ride little seahorses. The name Cassiopeia comes from cassus in Latin, meaning hollow, empty, devoid, or vain, with op for eyes. Therefore, Cassiopeia means hollow or empty eyes. For revenge, Poseidon sent the sea monster Cetus to ravage his kingdom. After consulting with an oracle, it was decided to sacrifice his daughter Andromeda to Cetus to save his kingdom. Cetus means whale in ancient Greek, a mammal that has the eye shine of the tapetum lucidum. Hero Perseus petrified Cetus using the gaze of Medusa's eye and the eyeshine from the snakes on her head. However, Medusa did not physically turn anyone into stone, for they were rendered unresponsive and immobile. The words explain a paralyzing weapon called a harp, which is likened to the strike of a cobra. Perseus and Cetus constellations both have eye-like features that will connect in the sky. Perseus is holding the head of Medusa to display Algol, the evil star that represents the blinking eye of Medusa. And in the middle of the Cetus constellation is a blinking variable star system called Mira, which in Latin means to look at, watch, but also means wonderful and astonishing. The blinking is caused by a smaller star caught in the larger star's gravitational field. As they orbit around each other, one travels in front of the other, causing a dimming of the light. Mira is a very similar eclipsing star system to Algol. Eye meets eye. So how does this fight between Perseus and Cetus play out in the fall sky? As with anything, there are rules to this game. Medusa's eye needs to leave the safety of our Milky Way, cross the immortal ecliptic of our sun, cross our flat galactic plane of the Milky Way located in Taurus, thus taking us out of our galaxy, and then her eye ray incidentally reflects off Orion's shield, crosses the celestial equator, and lands on Cetus's Mira. Taurus is the only constellation that crosses the ecliptic, galactic plane, and celestial equator. Perseus renders Cetus unresponsive, gets the woman, and lives happily ever after. Traditionally, the Egyptian eye of Horus means protection, power, and healing, and is a powerful sky god in the form of a falcon. Horus is Latin from the ancient Greek word horos, which is the prefix for the word horoscope. Today, the ancient Greek word horos interprets Horus as the watcher or the guardian of astrology. The eye of Ra and Horus are perfect examples of geometrics, demonstrating straight and curved paths of light rays in motion. And for the right eye of Ra, it represents the light of our sun and carries legendary power of hate, violence, and destruction in its wake. The left eye of Horus represents the light of the moon, representing regeneration, healing, divine invention, and protection. On this eye of Horus, an incoming light ray is striking a hump located usually near the inner eye, forcing the light to appear to the eye. This protrusion, as they call it, symbolizes an object that is redirecting the light path, so that it is refracted, reflected, and scattered as it enters the human eye where some is absorbed. Angulus in Latin means corner or angle, formed by two rays starting at a common point, and this message is reinforced by the corner angle labeled on the graphic. Ankylos is ancient Greek for angle, meaning crooked, curved, or angular, describing the elegant vine-like curled emanation coming from the eye. This curve-like structure is called woinos, which means to twist, such as a grapevine, and comes from the Greek word for wine. This vine-like structure outlines the hypotenuse in one side of a right angle to reinforce the angle message. Temple of Hathor in Dodera, Egypt, of questionable age, is dedicated to Hathor and her son Horus. Hathor is one of the oldest Egyptian goddesses who wore many hats throughout the ages as the Queen of Egypt. Later, goddess of magic Isis with her underworld husband brother Osiris became the mother of Horus. In this painted stone-carved relief, Hathor is seated on her throne in the center of the pupil of an eye. When I translated Apollo's name, I thought I made a mistake. Apollo is a compound name. Apol means apple. Lo adds the diminutive for little apple. The phrase apple of my eye is a Hebrew expression that literally means the little man of the eye. This refers to the tiny reflection of yourself that you see in other people's pupils or in a mirror. The pupil of the eye was thought of as a ball, and so was an apple, which supposedly symbolized immortality. Dionysus' second mother's name, Semele, is a compound word meaning sem for semi, meaning half, and mele is apple or melon, so his mother Semele actually is half the apple. If Apollo symbolizes immortality and is the other half of the apple, then Dionysus via Semele symbolizes mortality and our time on earth where darkness always exists. The most interesting part of the eye of Horus is the eyelid, between the outline of the upper eye and the eyebrow. The message has nothing to do with the eyebrow itself. In ancient Greek, blepharon means eyelid, or blepo means to look, see, perceive, or be aware of, as well to understand. The stripes below the eyebrow on the relief indicate the pulsations of light, or how the Egyptians thought light flowed. To the Egyptians, the sun and moon signified the eyes of the gods and goddesses. One story goes that Hathor found Horus blind and restored his eyesight by pouring gazelle milk over his face, which I would imagine represents the stars of the Milky Way. Another story tells of Thoth, the god of wisdom, who restored his eyesight. The African dung beetle, known as the scarab, is highly revered in Egypt. Even though the beetle's eyes are too weak to see individual stars, it was discovered that the scarabs use the light of the Milky Way to navigate in straight line paths. The oldest known sundial dates back to 1500 BC in Egypt's Valley of the Kings. Greek philosopher Anaximander, circa 1600 BC, believed everything originated from Apeiron, the infinite. Mnemonics is the art of telling time by the sun's shadow. Axis in Latin not only means to pivot the axle of a chariot, but describes the Earth's axis pointing to the North Star, true north, which is different from magnetic north. The axis mundi is the definitive line connecting the Earth to the sky, which is aligned with the gnomon on the sundial that points to true north. The sundial is the unification of opposites, and at the same time is binding heaven to earth. Until the 1840s, local time clocks were set by sundial time. Most importantly, a clock and a sundial used together measures longitude. In this Dionysus mosaic, the pillar in the center is a sundial, and the ray of light is going through the hole of the gnomon, keeping Dionysus's cup eternally full. The Freemason square and compass with the letter G embedded in the center appears to originate from the ancient Greek word gonia, meaning corner, angle, or carpenter square, which constructs the sundial. Apparently, the G in the center of the symbol means gonia or gnomon. Light is an illusion. Every day the Earth casts a shadow during its sunrise and sunset. A flat dark band just above the Earth stretches 180 degrees across the whole visible horizon. No matter how hard you fight the darkness, every light casts a shadow, and the closer you get to the light, the darker the shadow becomes. The looking glass of prismatic crystals of life have randomness embedded in its astrological aspects. It is believed that the Hebrew alphabet embedded meaning in the very shapes and curves of each letter, and perhaps this so. A constellation has been misidentified with a Latin name with a similar spelling, which has been a problem in the past. Once this is corrected, winged angels called butterflies appear all over the sky. The Greek and Romans believed that butterflies are the souls of the dead. Later, the meaning expanded into a broader sense to include the souls before birth or resurrection. The beautiful winged Greek goddess Psyche personifies the soul, mind, and spirit that are often believed to live on after a person's death. Butterflies in ancient Greek are called aletheia or aletheia. Aletheia in Latin means wings and theia means truth. It appears they hid this constellation on purpose because in the center of the word aletheia contains letho, which came from lethano, meaning to escape notice or hidden. In turn, aletheia can mean to reveal. Interestingly, the butterfly's compound eyes are hexagonal in shape. So can you find the butterflies throughout the sky? So how far back in history does this belief of a ray of light with eye interaction reach? Let's take a look at the goddesses through time. From 4000 to 2300 BC, Sumerian queen of heaven Inanna is known as Ishtar in Arcadia and Astarte in Canaan, and it appears they, at times, contemporaneously coexisted. Variants of the name Astarte is mentioned in the Phoenician, Hebrew, Egyptian, and Etruscan languages. The eyes are important in these figures. This Babylonian sculpture of Astarte actually has ruby eyes at a navel. Migration from the Fertile Crescent through Turkey and then to the Grecian coast appears to have reached the island of Crete by Bronze Age around 2000 BC, when the Minoan snake queen became popular. This simplistic Phoenician symbol for the creation and war goddess Tanit dates back to at least 500 BC and is believed much older. Armed with this new information and eye perspective, the symbol of a woman wearing a dress with arms held out now looks like a triangle of light flooding into the bottom of an eye with a pupil and an eyebrow. I'd like to thank my underpaid and overworked support staff, Pixie and Elsie, Stella the cat, Kairos the dog, and Max, aka Mr. Man, my pain in the butt cockatoo. Thank you for joining me. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share to support my channel. I wish you acceptance, peace, and happiness.